Welcome to the Midnight Mind. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you're new here and give the video a like while you're at it. It really helps the channel. You know what time it is? It's midnight. It's time to enter the mind of Nietzsche. Have you ever wondered why we love to build people up only to tear them down? Why a politician's triumph becomes tomorrow's scandal? Or why a celebrity's downfall feels like a public festival? We tell ourselves it's about accountability, justice, or boredom. But the truth runs deeper. Beneath the algorithms and the headlines, something ancient stirs. The same impulse that once crowned kings as gods and slaughtered them when their power faded. The ritual never died. It simply changed its costume. In The Golden Bough, Sir James George Frazer described a haunting cycle at the heart of human civilization. Across tribes and kingdoms, the king was no mere ruler. He was the living embodiment of the land's vitality, the divine made flesh. When the harvest failed, when illness spread, when drought choked the soil, the people turned to the king not for comfort, but for blood. His death, often by ritual execution, was believed to renew the world. The God King died so that life could continue. Imagine that weight. To be worshipped, not for who you are, but for what you represent. The vessel of cosmic balance, the axis of the tribe's survival. Every triumph strengthened the illusion of divinity. Every weakness, every sign of decay, whispered that the god's power was fading. The knife that once crowned him would soon be turned against him. Frazer saw in this pattern the earliest link between religion, myth, and authority, all born from the terror of nature's indifference and the desperate human need to control it through sacrifice. This was not murder, it was theology, a ritual of renewal. When the God King fell, the people believed they had purged decay itself. The blood sanctified the soil, and the cycle of life began anew. To us, such customs seem barbaric, alien, almost grotesque, the relics of a superstitious age. Yet Frazer's insights cut deeper. He claimed that even when civilization shed its primitive skin, the ritual remained embedded in the collective psyche. Humanity may have evolved, but our symbols did not. Consider what happens when modern leaders rise. A new politician emerges, radiant with promises, framed as the saviour of a broken system. The media adores him. The crowd chants his name. His image becomes a myth, polished, projected, purified of flaws. For a time, he seems invincible. But then, inevitably, cracks appear. A scandal, a failure, a single sign of weakness. The worship turns sour. The same crowd that lifted him up now hungers for his fall. The god has grown old. The ritual must be renewed. The pattern repeats beyond politics. Every celebrity crowned by public adoration is eventually dragged to the pyre. The same audience that once wept for their rise becomes the mob that revels in their ruin. Their humiliation becomes a form of entertainment, but also a kind of purification. We destroy them, not just out of envy, but to cleanse ourselves of our own disillusionment. The ritual doesn't ask for fairness, it demands renewal through sacrifice, a symbolic death that reassures us that balance has been restored. We tell ourselves we have outgrown these instincts. We have laws, journalism, reason, and rights. But our behaviour tells another story. The difference is only in the instruments we use. The priest has become the influencer. The altar has become the algorithm. When a scandal erupts online, the same psychological machinery activates. Collective outrage becomes liturgy. Hashtags replace chants. The ritual of sacrifice unfolds not in temples but on timelines. The victims are not kings, but they serve the same function. Carriers of our projections, scapegoats for our collective guilt. Frazer saw the God King's death as the drama of nature itself, the dying and reborn God echoing the cycle of the seasons. But in the modern world, the rhythm has accelerated. The seasons of fame move in hours, not years. One day you are divine, the next, discarded. We have mechanized ritual, industrialized sacrifice, The digital crowd does not wield knives, yet it performs the same symbolic act, devouring the idol it once adored to feed an unending hunger for renewal. If this sounds grim, it's because it is. The same primal instinct that once kept tribes united through shared ritual now fuels our culture of destruction. We no longer sacrifice to renew the land, we sacrifice to renew our attention. The king's blood once promised fertile soil. Today it promises engagement, virility, relevance. The modern priesthood, media, influencers, political strategists understand this well. They don't resist the ritual, they orchestrate it. And yet, if you look closely, the true ritual is not in the spectacle itself, but in our participation. Every click, every outrage, every act of judgment feeds the fire. We are both the worshippers and executioners, kneeling before the idols we create, then condemning them when they mirror our own corruption too clearly. We cannot stand the reflection, so we destroy the mirror. The death of the God King is no longer a distant myth. It is a daily practice performed by billions of hands. The frightening truth is this: we still believe in the sacredness of destruction. Deep down, we still equate renewal with sacrifice. Frazer's insight was not about ancient ritual alone, but about human psychology itself. Our inability to accept impermanence without first offering blood. Whether that blood belongs to a ruler, a celebrity, or an idea, it makes no difference. The pattern endures because it soothes our oldest fear, that the world can change without our consent. And so the ritual continues, not under the sun of ancient groves, but beneath the glow of digital screens. The God King still dies again and again to keep the illusion of control alive. We no longer call it sacrifice, we call it culture. Every act of destruction begins with worship. Before a king is sacrificed, he must first be sanctified. Before a celebrity is cancelled, they must be adored. Frazer described the death of the God King as a ritual necessity. But psychology reveals the deeper truth. What we destroy is not the person, but the illusion we built around them. And that illusion is born from our own hunger to project, to believe, to worship something greater than ourselves. Carl Jung called this the projection of the self, the human tendency to externalize our inner potential, to locate divinity outside ourselves. When we feel disconnected from meaning, we create idols to embody what we have forgotten within. The king becomes our will made flesh, the celebrity our unclaimed dream, the politician our hope for salvation. We don't simply admire them. We depend on them to hold what we cannot bear to hold alone. This is why their downfall wounds us so deeply. It feels like our own betrayal. Every age needs its gods, but few remember that gods are fragile things. Nietzsche understood this better than anyone. God is dead, he wrote, not as a triumph, but as a warning. When divine authority collapses, the human heart seeks new idols to fill the void. The death of one god is merely the birth of another. Our modern pantheon glows on screens, not in temples, yet it demands the same obedience. The will to power, Nietzsche's great force of creation, decays into a will of worship. Then a will to destroy what we once adored. There's a dark comfort in this cycle. It spares us the burden of responsibility. To worship another is to avoid confronting your own potential. To destroy them is to feel powerful without having to create. Jung saw this as a form of shadow projection, our hidden fears and desires cast outward, embodied by another. We deify what we secretly envy, then punish it for revealing the truth of our own mediocrity. In this way, every public execution is also a private confession. The collective mind operates like a single organism. When the crowd adores, it becomes a hive of devotion. When it turns, it becomes a swarm. Frazer's ancient villagers danced around the dying king, believing they were purifying the land. Today, we scroll, we share, and mock under the same illusion. And our outrage cleanses the world of corruption. But Jung would say the real corruption lies not in the fallen idol, but in the collective shadow. The dark undercurrent of envy, fear, and impotence that drives our need to destroy. We're terrified of weakness, especially in those we worship. The moment a leader falters, the illusion of strength shatters. Nietzsche called this moment the sickness of the herd, the fear that the symbols of power might not be eternal, and so the crowd turns vicious, purging the fallen figure to restore its sense of order. In truth, the herd doesn't hate the weak, it fears what their weakness reveals, that all idols are human, and all gods must die. This is the tragedy of worship, that it always contains the seed of betrayal. The same faith that elevates also condemns. The ancient king knew this. His reign was a slow procession toward the altar, every victory a step closer to the blade. He ruled, knowing his power would one day demand his blood. Modern leaders sense this too, though they no longer name it ritual. The politician who rises on waves of devotion already knows the crowd's love is conditional, its loyalty temporary. The price of godhood is always death, even if the execution is symbolic. But this pattern is not confined to the powerful, it lives within us. Every time we exalt someone beyond reason, a mentor, a partner, a public figure, we set the stage for their eventual fall. We demand perfection where none can exist. We love the illusion of divinity because it spares us from seeing our own potential for corruption. Yet the moment that illusion fractures, we rush to destroy it, as though by erasing them, we can erase our own disillusionment. Frazer's God King doesn't die because he fails the people. He dies because he reminds them of their limits. This is why the cycle endures. The ritual satisfies a psychological need far older than civilization, the need to believe that chaos can be controlled through sacrifice. In ancient times, the victim was chosen to represent the god's decay. In modern times, the victim represents our moral decay. We purify ourselves by condemning others. Each public downfall becomes a substitute for personal introspection. Jung would call this a collective neurosis, the projection of moral responsibility onto a scapegoat so that the individual can remain unconscious. Nietzsche warned that such cycles breed decadence, the slow death of vitality under the weight of false virtue. When a culture feeds on destruction disguised as justice, it loses the courage to create. He who fights with monsters, Nietzsche wrote, should be careful lest he thereby become a monster. Our digital rituals of outrage are the modern monster, the endless appetite for blood masked as moral awakening. Each new scandal offers catharsis, but leaves us emptier, more dependent on the next. The psychology of the sacred king is the psychology of projection. We offer our highest ideals to another, then slaughter them when they fail to embody perfection. It's a circular addiction. Worship and rage, adoration and despair. And yet the mechanism can be broken. Jung hinted at the way out, the process of individuation, of reclaiming the God within. When you stop projecting power onto others, you no longer need to destroy them to feel alive. The sacrifice ends when the worship ends. The first step is to see the pattern. Notice when admiration turns to dependency. Notice when judgment turns to ritual. Every time you participate in the public execution of another's image, ask yourself what part of your own shadow is being fed. The God King dies because we demand that someone else pay for our own unconsciousness. But no one can die for your soul. That work is yours alone. We no longer gather in temples to sacrifice kings. We gather online. The crowd has moved from the sacred grove to the glowing screen. Our rituals are performed through clicks, shares, and outrage. Bloodless, yet no less real. The altar has become invisible, distributed across platforms and devices. Frazer's ancient villagers offered their king's body to the earth. We offer reputations to the algorithm. Both acts serve the same purpose, to feed the invisible God that governs our collective fate. The algorithm doesn't care about truth or justice. It only feeds our attention. And attention, in our time, is harvested through drama, conflict, and collapse. Every downfall becomes data. Every public humiliation becomes content. The God King's blood has been replaced by virality. The ancient priests once chanted to bring rain. Today the crowd refreshes their feeds, praying for the next storm. We no longer call it sacrifice, we call it trending. In this new temple, power and vulnerability coexist in a single gesture. To be visible is to be worshipped. To be visible is also to be condemned. The more attention one attracts, the closer they drift towards symbolic death. Every follower gained is another hand on the knife. Fame has become the most efficient form of ritual sacrifice, a self-offering to the crowd's hunger. The moment you become an image, your humanity begins to erode. The modern king reigns not by strength, but by exposure. Consider the life cycle of digital gods. A creator rises, fresh, charismatic, unblemished. The crowd gathers. Their words feel profound, their failures forgivable. But fame accelerates entropy. Soon the cracks show. A careless comment, a contradiction, a moment of fatigue. The same audience that once blessed them now performs a modern equivalent of the ritual purge. Threads unravel. Compilations appear. Outrage ignites. The sacred fire burns once more, cleansing the community of its disillusionment. The king dies again, this time in pixels. Frazer might have seen in this a tragic continuity, proof that civilization's polish has not erased its primal soul. We still hunger for purification through destruction. Jung would add that technology merely amplifies the collective shadow, giving it instant expression and infinite reach. Every public downfall becomes a mirror held to our repressed selves. We deny this, of course. We speak of accountability and justice. But beneath the language lies something older. The thrill of shared moral vengeance. The ecstasy of belonging to the righteous crowd. Nietzsche would call this the triumph of resentment, the moralizing revenge of the powerless. When the crowd cannot create, it destroys. When it cannot ascend, it pulls others down. The ritual of sacrifice becomes the only remaining path to transcendence. And the algorithm rewards it, ensuring the cycle never ends. Each public death is followed by silence, then by the rise of a new idol to be adored, envied, and eventually torn apart. The rhythm is so familiar that we mistake it for justice. But there is a way out, not for the system, but for the individual. The ritual continues only because we participate in it unconsciously. When you refuse to worship false gods, you withdraw your energy from the cycle. When you refuse to join the mob, you interrupt the ritual. The ancient villagers believed the king's death kept the seasons turning. But the truth is, the world does not need our sacrifices. It needs our awareness. Every act of blind outrage, every gleeful downfall you partake in, keeps the ancient machinery of destruction alive. Freedom begins when you see the pattern without becoming it. Jung's individuation is the modern exorcism, a quiet rebellion against collective possession. When you recognize your projections, you reclaim your power from the idols of the crowd. You no longer need to adore or destroy others to feel real. You become sovereign within yourself. No longer king, no longer priest, but witness. The ritual collapses in your awareness, and in that collapse, something sacred returns. Choice. Frazer's sacred king was trapped in a world that demanded his death. You are not. The same instincts that once bound the tribe to its rituals now bind the digital age to its cycles of outrage. But consciousness breaks ritual. When you choose not to feed the altar, when you stop offering others as sacrifices for your own unrest, you begin to step outside the myth. The God King dies so the tribe may continue. But the awakened individual lives so the tribe may change. So ask yourself, how many altars have you served without knowing it? How many lives have you watched destroyed for your entertainment, disguised as morality? Each downfall we consume keeps the collective spell alive. Each moment of awareness weakens it. The real death that must occur is not the fall of another idol, but the death of our own need to worship them. Only then does the cycle end. We're the descendants of those who once danced around the dying king. But now, the circle is digital, the chant is algorithmic, and the sacrifice is endless. The gods we kill are not kings in golden crowns, but reflections of our own divided selves. The altar still burns, fed by our attention, our envy, our need for belonging. But there is always a moment, brief, silent and powerful, when you can step back from the fire and choose to see it for what it is. Because in the end, Frazer's truth remains. The god always dies. The question is whether we must keep killing him, or finally learn to let him live. Within us, as awareness, not worship. The herd will always seek sacrifice. Authority will always demand a spectacle. But you, standing at the edge of the digital grove, have one choice left: to feed the altar or walk away from it. Thanks for joining me for this episode of The Midnight Mind. If you've enjoyed the video, please hit the like button for me. I really would appreciate it. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys next time.